Ollie Gleave, great to get you on the Rebel Agent podcast.
Good to see you, David.
There's loads I want to get into today. I want to talk about Loop. I want to talk about Jupix. Most important of all, you've set up broker or are in the process of looking to do that, which is an app for Dubai agents, which is particularly of interest. So I want to talk about that as well. But I first saw you on the Christopher Watkin podcast in 2019.
Yeah.
And it was by far the best Christopher Watkin podcast I'd ever seen.
I appreciate that.
It's very good. I watched it 3 or 4 times, something like that. And then if I take you back to February of this year, you got in contact with me and said, can we meet up? Because I'd moved to Dubai. You knew me as an EX, but you knew I was an EXP agent, and you just wanted to talk about this new app.
Yeah.
And so we met at the Green Community. You made it easy for me. You came to me. I would have travelled anywhere in Dubai. I'd have probably come back to the Cotswolds where you live to have had that conversation, because I was that impressed from before. But perhaps we can talk about, let's go back. So you studied computer science at university?
That's right, yeah. So that was a 3-year course that I did at the Royal Military Academy at Cranfield University. So I was studying alongside service men and women. And graduated all the way back in sort of 2000, I think it was. So I've always had an interest in IT, and computer science was not an easy course, but something that set me up for the career that I've had and continue to have.
And what did you do after that?
So I had a varied sort of 5 or 6 years, really. I went from university into the City of London and worked in the investment banking space, specifically on the technology side. So had some really interesting projects all around the world, really, from working in New York, Tokyo, even out to the Bahamas at one point. And we were a consulting firm. I was a junior guy on the team, and we implemented trading systems. So I went straight out of the academia circle, if you like, and into a very applied job that was demanding, but I learned a lot. And from there, during the credit crunch in sort of 2002, 2003, the banking sector just, completely retracted, if you like. And so there were 900 of us in the company that were made redundant. I was one of them, and I very quickly found myself back at home, back at mum and dad's house. And
really?
That was quite humbling, I have to say. But, it's a chance to dust yourself off and go again. So,
learn from the experience.
Yeah, all of that. Working in an environment where, the pace was high, the numbers were big, the technology was cutting edge, and it was a really interesting time. But I could have done with it maybe a couple more years, because I found myself back at the parents' home, at 24, 25, thinking, well, what do I do next? And I've always had a passion in technology. I've always had a curious nature when it comes to how do things work in tech. And of course, at that time, the internet was a thing. It was developing quickly. I don't know if you remember boo.com, but that was the first online shopping experience that didn't do so well. It was ahead of its curve. But
Pets.com.
All of that, but it was generation 1 of the internet, really. So I knew it was going to stick around, and I had this background in IT. And I thought, it's time to probably start my own thing. And I wasn't quite sure what I would do. So, I came up with an idea which manifested ultimately as Jupix. And we went from there. But it's not a path I chose. It's a path that life threw me onto, if you like. And I've never looked back, really.
Something I remember from that podcast with Christopher Watkin is you put an advert in the paper to take on like an assistant. Was that right?
Yeah,
Somebody
that's right.
To help you. And then he ended up becoming the business partner?
Yeah, it's a really interesting story, that. I mean, you look back and these are sliding door moments, really. And if I can use entrepreneurship just once in this podcast, I use it now. It's the ability to see an opportunity and just act on that, really, and go narrow and deep on the idea. So how the business started, and this is Jupix we're talking about now. It started actually as a IT repair company. So if your mouse and your keyboard failed, we'd come and replace it. And it was very, very basic. So we sent all these I sent these flyers out to sort of 15,000 businesses locally to me. And the overwhelming response coming back was from estate agents. So in talking with those people, it wasn't the problem wasn't with the IT hardware, it was with the IT software. And back then it was all desktop applications and they couldn't share properties. And I kind of got my head into that and thought, well, if I combine the internet thing with the estate agency thing, we can put something in front of them that solves a few of those problems. But I'm not a coder. You know, I know how it works and I can make myself look and sound credible in a team of developers, but I don't sit at the keyboard and code. So I had to go and find somebody for that. And that was at the time an advert in the paper, you know, young guy seeks other co-founder in the business and can't pay you a lot of money, but let's see what we can do. So a guy called Tom Leecher turned up. Tom was even younger than me at the time. So, you know, we went into this thing very green. It was Tom, me and a pot plant.
And were you still living in Evesham?
I was at the time, yeah. And then I moved to Banbury to get away from mum and dad. Because once you've moved out, very difficult to move back. Yeah. Tom and I, you know, we put the hours in, we chased down an idea. We had a few people that we could discuss this thing with and off we went. And, you know, that story of how the business broke into a market, how it developed a whole series of solutions to problems that you then see when you work in a market, all the way through to the exit was and continues to be a fascinating case study for me, even now, sort of 15 years on. A lot of experience in there and great times and overcoming problems and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Tom's a legend.
Yeah, that's a great story. And you took Jupix from, well, in terms of staff, obviously just the two of you to start with, to when you exited 60 staff. Is that
it was knocking on the door of 60. I mean, Jupix was an estate agency software system that was at the end a very comprehensive, fully featured, multidiscipline platform, if you like, and it did diary management and it would upload to the portals and it would do biomatching and it would generate documentation. You know, it was very deep in terms of what it could do for an agent, regardless of size. And we had some fantastic brands on the platform. We worked with very small agencies, early stage husband and wife kind of set up, all the way through to sort of national franchise groups and everything in between. So by the end of that journey, if you like, we were very au fait with the UK property market, prop tech as a thing. It was becoming a thing that people were talking about. We'd done a lot of integration work, so we understood, you know, our role in the ecosystem. And, you know, we had teams and we had functions in the business that I didn't know existed, from marketing to support to account management, sales, product dev, QA, all this stuff, furniture in the business.
Well, you wouldn't be expected to know all that, would you? Because you were starting very small, and that's something you learn as you go along.
100%. Yeah, we were doing something for the first time every day, and you get to a point, I guess, as a first gear entrepreneur, someone that likes to kickstart businesses, you very quickly scale to a point where you're making decisions that have a profound effect on the team and on the business. And are you as an individual qualified to make those decisions? We had a board, we had non-execs, we had advice around the table, but Zoopla came along ultimately, and it was the right decision commercially and for the people to put the business in a structure where it could scale, and where some of the guys on the team could really open their legs, if you like, on the career and stretch out that way. So, you know, we have a responsibility as business owners to look after the teams, and that was a good fit. And of course, crudely, the financial independence that then created was very appealing. I was a young guy with a young family, you know. That was a motivator for sure.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. So it worked well. And Jupix lives on to this day. It's a great product with a great business. But we are back in the market, battling with them again with my new product, which is Loop. And Loop is a business that's been running, coming up for 4 years now. Very similar product. Like to think that the second time you do something, it's going to be better. Yeah. And we're very excited about what Loop does. And
you've added prospecting onto the CRM, haven't you?
That's right. Yeah.
And I'm just going to go back. One point you sold out to Zoopla. A lot of the listeners here are in Dubai. Zoopla is the number 2 property portal in the UK.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's Rightmove and Zoopla in the UK, the equivalent of Property Finder and Bayut here.
That's right. Yeah. And then in third place, we've got the On the Market portal, which is All three are significant businesses. Rightmove is a publicly listed portal. Zoopla is owned by Silver Lake, which is a huge hedge fund in the US, and On the Market is owned by CoStar, which is another US giant.
That was a recent takeover, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, within the last 6-9 months, I would guess. And there's some really interesting dynamics appearing in the portal space in the UK.
Yeah, I think there are in every country.
That's right. So. Yeah, we know a lot about aggregation. We, as a CRM system, if you like, in the UK, we work very closely with all three. We're in an adjacent space. Some of them have CRM products themselves, but I always come back to people staying in their lane and sticking to their knitting. And we're the software guys; they're the portal guys. I haven't seen a scenario where the two come out the same stable well, but I would say that would lie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting time in the UK.
Yeah. So Jupix, sorry.
Yeah.
Which you sold. You had a little break then. You were forced to have a break, I guess. Came back in. You did Loop, which adds the prospecting and other tools, which I used myself when I was with EXP in the UK. Fantastic software. UI and UX were both very strong, probably the best CRM I've used, and that carries on today.
Thank you.
Now got this idea for Broker.
That's right.
Which is an app. Well, I'll let you describe it.
Yeah, kind words, thank you. We think we did a good job at Jupix. We've got a slightly different interpretation with Loop. And that's to follow a trend that we're seeing in the market, which has an overlap into Broker and the motivation and the rationale to try something else, new product, new market. That's why we're here. But in the UK, there's a movement of models from a conventional employed setting to, we call it the online or the affiliate networks, where individuals are empowered to do deals for themselves, ultimately. Command higher fees, make more money. And that's a thing that's happening in the UK. And we're fortunate enough to work with some of the affiliate networks. So we learn about how they're set up, how technology plays a part in that. And we sort of fell into that really at Loop. So that's interesting. Market data is playing a huge part in that story. And so in the UK, it's our duty as technologists to put in the hands of our users insight, which allows them to provide meaningful advice to their clients. I think that's crucial. What we're seeing on the consumer side is an ever increasing appetite to learn more about the property, the area, and they're often coming to the table much better informed now than they were, say, 5 or 8 years ago. And we're talking about trivial things like Google Street View, localized places, access to schooling data. In the UK, we've got to think about flooding. I'm not so sure that's a problem here, but
well,
if you go back to March, it was,
yeah.
So there are localized issues which the consumer, the buyer, knows about before they declare their interest in actually buying. So that puts a pressure on the agent now to be more relevant and justify their value. That's what we're seeing in the UK. So Loop is both CRM in a conventional sense, plus market data. And it's the fusion of those two things that makes it unique. And we've come out of that probably about 18 months ago, where we're feature complete on that as we see it. And then I've taken that a step further into a concept that we're calling broker, which is to connect brokers in the Middle East, in the UAE, in Dubai specifically, to collaborate, to communicate better, and to close more deals. And that could be within a brokerage, or as we see it, as a wider marketplace sort of paradigm where brokers cut through the noise, get to deals that are verified, trusted, and credible, and ultimately move people better. That's the vision, if you like, and how we do that is a product play, and that's through technology.
Yeah, I think this has got tremendous potential. There's 1 or 2 people that have tried it, but it's a bit rough at the edges. It's not really working at the moment. And I really like the idea of brokers being empowered and just have more information and being able to work together, because ultimately it's going to help the client, isn't it? It's going to help the seller. It's going to help the buyer. And if you're not offering the maximum to them in terms of scope out their potential buyers, then you're doing them a disservice, I feel.
Yeah, look, in tech, we talk a lot about friction-free experiences. So you could take any app, a food delivery app tends to illustrate the point quite well. And when you sign up to this thing, they actually get you food to the door very quickly. And we look at those sorts of UX, those user experiences, and we apply those to real estate, not just in a pure app type environment, but in the experience that exists and the relationship that exists between the broker and the buyer, the broker and the seller, and even the broker and the broker. And any market is subject to processes, workflows, and if you like, manual heavy stuff that as a technologist, you look at that and think, it's madness. If that was me doing that, it would be frustrating, it would slow me down, and it would hold me back. And there's automation that we can bring to some of that stuff, but there's just speed and simplicity that we can bring. And that's where we're going with this thing. So, if we take the agent-to-agent form as an example, I believe that that's quite often a manual process.
Yes.
Prone to error. Sometimes it doesn't get done. Compliance departments are going up in arms that they don't have, a compliant deal. And that can often come back and cause friction even further down the line. So one of the things that we can do in broker is we can make the A2A thing tap done. And those are very easy to do. They're in from day one, but we're chasing a concept which is to allow brokers to find deals that exist, connect with other good brokers, get a deal flow moving faster, and ultimately provide a better service to their clients. Now, if that's not a good thing, I really shouldn't be here. I should be doing something else.
Yeah.
But we think that the market needs that. And there are significant participants in that flow. The DLD is one. The relationship that we have with brokerages and off-plan developers and all of this stuff, I haven't figured that out yet. But as we come towards a launch date, we're building very aggressively with this product. Crucially, we're going to be looking to engage brokers that have an opinion, that are not scared to put their hand up and say, we don't think that's right, what about this? That's how I've built two really great businesses, is being very close to my users and listening to their feedback and acting on that feedback. We're not building something for us, we're building something for the broker market here in Dubai. And on that basis, the only people we get out of bed for are the brokers themselves. So we want to build a community that is vocal, opinionated, and demanding. We love that stuff.
And I have had a quick look at it, and you're putting a lot of facilities in there to ensure that there's the adequate trust between brokers, aren't you?
Yes, that's right.
So, and the way I see it in the future is more and more brokers will start using this app, I think. And as you get more on board, if you're not part of it, you will be missing out, and you're not offering the best service to the client.
That's right, yeah.
I think it's got a lot of potential.
I was going to say, look, when we observe the market, and this is us in the UK with a few trips now out here, engaging brokers and looking at data, we think there's a lot of noise in the market. There's a lot of confusion. There's this awful experience of zombie scrolling WhatsApp groups and trying to figure out
absolutely
where the demand is and who's right and who's
real. As agents, we're members of so many WhatsApp groups. Yeah, it all gets very confusing.
It's nauseating.
And the funny thing is, you'll be on one WhatsApp group with a whole load of people, and some of those people will be in other WhatsApp groups.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you get a property come through, and you know that it will then pop up on other WhatsApp groups because somebody from one WhatsApp group will put it in another. And it's not really functioning.
Well, I think everybody's pedaling hard in this market. It's competitive. I'm going to use the word cutthroat, or the phrase cutthroat. I think there's a huge amount of noise and confusion. We've got to cut through that. We've got to get to authenticity, verified listings, brokers that are performant. And so the broker concept is one of community where when you see something, you know it's for real, and it's backed by a broker that is credible and proven. So this thing is not going to be for everybody. That's the point. It's going to be for those that are in real estate for the real reasons, the right reasons, and there's functionality that we've got right now, which is interesting. We've got a roadmap of stuff that's coming that I think is super interesting. And all software companies have a roadmap, by the way. If they don't, then they're not telling the truth. But we've got ideas on where we can go with this. And it starts now. So, we're looking forward to a busy summer where we're going to be building more and more stuff. And then we'll be back mid-September, we think, to actually launch this thing. And get it in the community and see what the uptake is. And as always, stay very close to that feedback loop and make sure that we are continuing to build relevant solutions for problems that actually exist.
Well, it sounds great, and I wish you all the best with that.
Thank you.
Just before I let you go and we wrap things up, I like to ask people what they like about Dubai. Why? When did you?
I'm going to say the weather. Let's start with that. I mean, It's very warm outside, but it's profoundly different in everything that we're seeing. The infrastructure, the scale, the energy. I feel very safe here. I get excellent service. I mean, there's a lot going on here that's very interesting. From a real estate perspective, we look at this market and we're staggered by deal flow, deal velocity. And the growth. I mean, the opportunities that exist out here for brokers, that are flooding in seemingly from all over the world. It's a multicultural marketplace. And I touch down in the airport and I'm excited to get off the flight and get involved here. I love the UK. I'm beginning to love Dubai a bit more.
So would you move out here?
That's a good question. It's very tempting. I think like all things, we have I have a family in the UK. We have young boys at school, and I have a business in the UK which is right now very close to me, and will continue to be that way. But the world is becoming a smaller place, and I think it's not difficult to get out here. We have representation out here through Graham, who's our in-country leader, one of the co-founders of the business here at brokerbroker, and I think in the short term certainly we'll be out here a lot as a team, and we'll be recruiting locally to build that team out here in Dubai. But it's not a hardship coming here. We'll see what happens.
I mean, just on the kids, the education here is very good.
I've heard, and I'd be lying if I said I haven't had a look at that. I mean, the summer period is interesting. I think a lot of people disembark because of the heat, but I've been here in April. I've been here in December. I'll be back out in January for sure. It's a very very easy lifestyle, very attractive.
Yeah, you say a lot of brokers are coming out here. I mean, there's plenty of desert to build on. There's plenty of steel and concrete that can be imported. Relatively cheap labour.
Yeah.
It's just going to go on and on and on, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And when they run out of land, they got sea to reclaim. So
they're pretty good at that. I mean, at night, you can look down. I'm staying at sort of Jumeirah Beach in that area. At night, you can look left, and all you see is flashing red lights, and you look right, flashing red lights, and that's all cranes and infrastructure.
You're between the palms there.
Yes, yeah. So, the shape and the size of this thing is changing, and for those that have been here 10, 15, 20 years, I'd say it's a completely different city now to how it was. And just looking out over the palm the other evening, that thing didn't exist 30 years ago.
That's right.
And look at it now; it's a complete masterpiece.
Yeah.
So, love this place.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I wish you all the best with brokerbroker.
Thanks, David.
I strongly believe it will do well. And let's see what the future brings.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Thanks very much for coming on.
Cheers.
Cheers.